This is the Human First AI Marketing Podcast, and we have a very special guest this week, Mark de Grasse, CEO of the AI Branding Academy, but he is also the former president of Digital Marketer. He's helped hundreds of brands. He's got his own podcast, Mark. If you're watching and listening to podcasts right now, go check that out. And done a ton of work with AI and AI-powered logo design and marketing, content generation. It's going to be super cool. I'm excited to jump into it. But Mark, before we get started, my first question to you is, it's a human first podcast. How would you prove you're human, or what's the human thing that you haven't outsourced to AI yet?
All right. So I mentioned this a little bit before we started, but I said I'd only been human for about 2 years. And it's because I went through a big transformation when I was 39, where I realized that I basically had IBS for like 25 years that was causing a big depression. And so at that point, I realized, wow, I did a whole bunch of things to fix the problem. But yeah, I think I've only been human for a couple of years. I kind of woke up, started being myself, I think. And I think transformation is probably the easiest way to show that you're human.
I can relate to that. And I don't know if mine was sort of COVID related, but I was getting there anyway. Just burnt out, realizing, I think, like when you chase the corporate ladder and stuff, that you find that there's just more ladder. It's not really leaning in. It's anything.
That's exactly what happened to me.
To make yourself happy, right? So what did you find? What made you finally feel human? What was the change that did it for you?
You know what? It was basically what you just said, where I was kind of like, I had this objective. I was going to get to the top. And so I got, the house that I wanted and all the stuff that I wanted, and everything that I kind of made is like my primary objective. I had accomplished it, and then realized that I'm like, oh no, I got to the top of the mountain and I thought happiness would be here, and realized that it had nothing to do with it. And so at that point, I was like, okay, well, I screwed up and I've been wrong for apparently my whole life. And so I tried to transform. But the way I do that is I say, okay, I obviously don't know what the heck I'm doing, so I'm not going to qualify any solutions. So I just went through everything that was available. I went to therapy, gave up alcohol, ran a marathon, started cold dipping and sun gazing. And I did a gut biome check, which made me give up beef and pork and eggs, basically my entire diet. And then I did Kundalini meditation or Kundalini yoga, breath work. I basically did everything. And during that process, I was able to fix the problem and realize that I had essentially created the shell of myself that I've been presenting to everybody, which then, ego death happened and came crashing down, rebuilt from scratch. And now I'm this.
Wow. Well, I appreciate you sharing. That's an awesome, deep way to start the podcast. So we're going to have to keep that going as I talk to more people. But also, congratulations on all of that, because I've been doing that work too. And I think it's interesting that both of us found AI in this, and it's a nice transition for us, that you can easily kind of become a shell of yourself if you're trying to automate your job, or you're trying to have AI write for you. You can lose your soul in this pretty easily too. So how does AI play into your transformation, and how do you stay authentic now that you've done so much work to find yourself? How do you make sure you don't lose it again when you think about AI?
You know what? With AI, I talk about robot work versus human work a lot of the times, and you actually get a lot more human when you start to give up the robot work. Because essentially, I did tons of research. I'm actually about to come out with a book about kind of the history of the internet over the last 25 years. And what I realized was that we've all turned into kind of like troubleshooting programmers, whether we realized it or not, simply because we had to be. You're constantly going through applications, you're having to switch back and forth. I call it the human switchboard operator of apps, because that's how we have to operate all the time. And we essentially have had to figure out technology, and we're the ones that are inputting all the information. And what AI does is essentially frees us from a lot of the stuff that humans aren't really good at. We're not good at pattern recognition. We're not good at memory. We're not good at data entry. We're not good at consistently executing processes, because we get distracted and bored. And even the best workers among us still have bad days, which leads to work not getting done and money not being made. So the way I look at AI is, hey, if we could just give AI all that boring crap that we don't like, that we're not good at, we could focus on things that humans are good at, which is making connections, building relationships, innovating crazy new stuff, imagining, like, all the fun stuff about being human that we've basically given up because now we have computers that we could be focused on 100% of the time. So it's a paradox, because it's like, yes, AI could make you feel less human, but if you use it right, it actually frees you from all the crap that doesn't make you human at all.
I agree. I think it's going to help people realize what human expression and things are. I think in a world where you can make anything, you have a tremendous way to amplify your voice, but you kind of have to have something to say. You can't just ask AI what you're going to stand for or what you want to what message you want to spread into the world. And I think that's one of the things that I'm really excited about, is that AI can help you tell a story, but it can't tell your story. You have to bring it in there. So I think that takes us right to your brand and the AI Branding Academy. I'm fascinated to ask you about this, because I'm guessing your clients and the people that go through the courses there and stuff have to do the same thing, that they can't just ask AI to decide what their business is all about and what their core messaging is. But how do you use those tools to help that? Or is it more about expressing and creating the brand once you have something you stand for?
No, well, actually, you can have AI do that. I actually have tools where you could build a whole brand in about like 10 minutes. It doesn't make it a good brand, right? The only and that's the thing. It's like, everybody could start a business, but the businesses that actually succeed, and I've built and failed at many, and so, as a lot of entrepreneurs that you talk to, are the businesses that you like to do, that you're passionate about, and that you really have a vision for. Because the fact of the matter is, business is really, really, really hard. And even though we kind of, and I always blame like GoDaddy for this, where it's like, oh, it's so easy to set up a business, just now you have a website and people are making money. It's like, no, what? No, that's a complete lie. So you could sell domains, of all things. But what AI does is essentially allows you to think more about, okay, what am I trying to do? What am I trying to achieve? And then, instead of having to delegate a lot of the brand building, a lot of, what the company is, to other people, which is what you have to do when you build a business. Like, let's say you're a drop shipping business. Okay, I'm going to have a drop shipping business. I need a warehouse. Okay, so I gotta, get a warehouse. I gotta hire some people. I gotta figure out all the inventory. I gotta build the product base. I gotta figure out my accounting. Gotta get into HR. Gotta get into all these things. It's a million decisions that you have to make, and the business owner has to delegate a lot of those decisions to the people that they hire, or they did. But with AI, what you could essentially do is build a structure. We call it the AI brand blueprint, where you could input all of the information and say, hey, here's what the brand is. Now I'm going to use AI to propagate all of this by simply handing the tool to people I hire. And now they aren't making those decisions. They're not inputting their vision. They're not inputting their opinion and their mood and everything else that every human has. They're just taking the information from what I've built, and now I could build an extremely consistent brand. And it's not just about the marketing at that point. You're talking about the processes that go into it. You're talking about the employee manuals, the onboarding, the customer care, the verbiage that people use, the voice that you really want to be used both externally and internally, could now be automated and trained through AI. And now everybody's on the same page. And now it's all my vision that's going out. And that's really what you see with really successful businesses, especially startups.
Yeah, you just hit on like three big things. Let's start with the consistency. I think that's really interesting, as far as even just like the brand logos, colors, things that we've gotten in a world. I think Canva was a big step forward. It's like, once we apply some templates and things and everybody can use the same templates, that helps a lot. But now some of these tools that can replicate everything, or you're using internal wikis and stuff to really keep consistency. I think that is another step forward. And consistency in the brand voice is probably the hardest one, but you can train AI robots and generative AI to speak in your voice, do certain things, avoid certain words, or use certain words. And the leaps and bounds there, I think most of the business world have not experienced yet. They haven't.
No, well, it's been impossible because you essentially have to have some kind of like brand manager Nazi to be making sure, hey, jerk, that's not the right font. Hey, you over there, that's the wrong word. We don't use negative words in our advertising. And, we can't afford that. And that's why we always look at brands like Nike and Apple and these big billion-dollar companies that are like, oh, wow, okay, that's what a real brand is. But with AI, that's the manager. Now you could say, okay, I need to outsource my TikTok marketing. And I could, say, hey, TikTok marketer, please do a good job and try to keep it brand consistent. But most likely that contractor is going to be like, yeah, okay, you didn't give me any guidelines. So I'm just going to go ahead and employ my strategy that I've worked. And it could be effective strategy, but still their strategy. Instead, what you could do with AI is you could say, hey, TikTok manager, I don't know anything about TikTok. And honestly, I don't know anything about marketing maybe, but I need you to query this AI that we set up that has our brand voice, that has our values, that has all these, community specs that we've made. And now query that whenever you do something, because I want to make sure that even though I don't understand what this means, the AI does. And I want you to make sure that you use it as a resource so you stay on brand all the time.
Yeah, that is really cool. And it's going to be really fun, I think, as people experiment with these tools and they learn how to make them and grow with it. The second thing that you mentioned, I think, in these voices and ways that we propagate out is taking one sort of source document and taking it to a whole bunch of other things. So I'm wondering what your thoughts are. Maybe some of the coolest things you've seen people make with this is that, it used to be either you were a writer or you're a videographer, or, you and I are podcasters, so we like this format and discussions, or you were really great at event marketing and public speaking. But now you can kind of take whatever your core strength is and then replicate that and change this podcast into a blog post or a white paper, blog to a book, or go the other way and turn a book into 1,000 blogs. It really creates a lot more opportunities. Have you seen that with the people you're working with?
Oh, 100%. I mean, I think that's the other, huge aspect of AI is it democratizes these skill sets that, me personally have taken 20 plus years to develop. Now you don't need to do that. Not to say that me having 20 plus years of experience doesn't have massive value in my ability to use AI to do things. But your average person now could say, hey, I'm not a writer. I hate it. I got a D in school and I just really don't like it, but I love talking on camera. And it's like, okay, great. Well, just talk to the camera. Then we're going to use Descript AI to go ahead and transcribe that information. Then I'm going to pull that into Claude and say, okay, analyze this person's speaking style and transfer it into a writing specification that AI could use to write articles. And so now not only can you turn that video that you shot into an article, you now have a specific voice that you can write with. And now you can just pull that in and say, okay, use this writing style to write an article about, and now the human could just input your ideas. You don't have to be a writer. You could just be like, oh, I had this awesome idea. I had a dream and it was just this great idea about how to make this thing. Now you can just type in that and you can do it as poorly as you want. And it'll turn it into something that sounds like you're a competent writer. And now you're an author and you could write books and you could do all that kind of stuff. And actually for me, I did it to make a whole magazine. And so this is Magazine Mark. I know it's a podcast, but Magazine Mark. Basically, I was like, I come from making magazines. I had one of my first successes was selling a publication that I had to a company called On It here in Austin. And so I had this experience, but creating a magazine usually would take me 100 to 200 hours of editing and formatting and finding the graphics and making the and do all in this kind of stuff. I made that magazine in a weekend. And so now, even though, I wouldn't have done a magazine, because what kind of crazy narcissist would make a magazine about themselves? I did it because I love magazines, and everybody was writing books at the time. And I was like, you know what? I'm doing this presentation and I would love people to do something with this information as they were flying home. And nobody tosses out magazines. And so now, because I have AI, I could just build a whole magazine. And on top of that, with AI, I could now not only put my articles in here, but I could turn the concepts in the articles into a GPT that is linked in the article. So now you can actually apply it and create custom results in seconds. And I mean, when could you do that before?
Yeah, that's amazing. And that's exactly what I was hoping you would say when I asked you that question, because yeah, making a magazine for your company was something a big brand could do. 5 years ago, $100 million plus company could have their own magazine and publish stuff or do internal publications and things. But now, if you can do that for you could do that for your client. You could say, hey, here's the ABC, marketing magazine, and highlight all the stuff that you did for this company. Or you could do it for your internal things. And if it takes a couple of days to make stuff, and it's essentially, like I said, the variable cost is free. Maybe you have to buy some tools, or maybe you have to spend some of your time, but we're not talking about tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars. You can now get really creative with what you make a magazine about or anything else, which is awesome.
Well, and that's the cool part, is now that all this time and money and effort used to go into production, right? And then it was like, the content, whatever, just you grab some crap, like we're just making this to look cool.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, spend lots of time on the content, spend lots of time on the research, spend lots of time on the testing. And now you have something that's not just looks cool because whatever, everything could look cool. Now it's actually valuable. And now you're doing the fun part and really the valuable part of having a business or being an author or being a professional and whatever you're at, instead of, I have this awesome idea, but I know it's going to take $50,000 to execute. So I guess I'm just not going to do it. And that's what's happened to date.
So I got a couple of questions for you here that I think will be tough ones for you in particular. You've already mentioned a few tools, and everybody loves a good tool hack. Do you have a favorite AI tool right now out of the 15,000 that have been created in the last 2 years?
I'm boring. I'm boring and practical. So I don't actually like to use any tools that I don't think are going to be around in a year or two. And so what I do is I wait and I say, okay, what's everybody using? Which tools seem to be developing on a regular track? Who has funding? Because I hate wasting time on like, oh, it's the neatest tool ever. And then, oh crap, it got bought by Microsoft. And now it's a crappy component of Copilot or something. I'm not a fan of Copilot. I'm not a fan of Microsoft.
Not naming no.
So for me, it's, I just have like 5 tools I use a lot. I use ChatGPT, of course. And ChatGPT, the reason why it's so effective is because it is versatile. And a lot of tools aren't. They're so specific that unless you're going to use it this way, you'll see this with a lot of video editors where it's like, oh, you can make these neat videos. It's like, yeah, except all of our videos look the same. Like who cares? It needs to be unique. And so ChatGPT allows that. Plus they have the GPT store where it's like, oh, not only is it a useful tool, but you can actually share that with the whole world. And now how we use it is we basically test concepts by creating as many GPTs as possible, getting them out there and then seeing what works. And then we could take the ones that are effective, the tools that people actually like. And now we could start to, develop it into something a little bit more. So ChatGPT number 1, and then Claude, Claude by Anthropic is a fantastic writing tool. It's, very consistent with the brand voice that you input it, and the writing is just better than ChatGPT most of the time. Perplexity, which continues to get better and better. So if you're never used AI before, I usually send people to Perplexity because I say Perplexity is your replacement for Google, which is trash. Google's trash. I'll always say that.
It is now, and search traffic from Google for SEO purposes is down 50% this year.
I didn't hear that one yet.
People are finding the answers on Perplexity and everywhere else, and it's all full of ads and AI answers where you don't need to go to a website to look. So it's there's going to be a game changer. There already is in marketing.
Well, and I'll tell you why Google's gotten worse and worse is because the guy that actually ruined Yahoo is in charge of search for Google. And he came out in the spring of this year and said, you know what? SEO is cooked. I guess it's just gonna, the good times are over. That's literally his words during a press conference. And I was like, man,
oh my gosh,
this guy is going to turn Google into the classified ads of the newspaper. And that's
what they did to Yahoo. That's why
exactly. That turned to trash. So I always tell people Perplexity, and they're coming up with this, like they have the new projects function or spaces. I always get them confused because what you start to see with the development is all of them start to go in a line. Like, oh crap, ChatGPT has a project function, so we need to add a project function, which is whatever, bunch of nerds copying each other.
Search and everything else. I think that's why your advice, though, to stick with the big ones is best, because like Microsoft and Google and Facebook, they're going to incorporate any of the other cool, smaller tools.
Well, and they aren't going to acquire. They're not going to acquire each other most of the time, which is really my big concern, is that you go all in on some cool app and then all of a sudden it just gets bought and you're like, oh man, I just wasted all this time. Oh, it's going to be incorporated. It's like, no, it's not. They're going to scrap this junk and they're just going to take the users. But yeah, well,
I think that's a hard question for you though. So I know nobody knows. So I want you to give your best speculative guess. What does marketing look like in, let's say, 5-6 years, like 2030?
Okay. That's a good question.
What does it look like for you?
So for me, and that's kind of where I built my entire company around, because I saw what was happening. And the real problem with marketing over the last 10 to 20 years is we become so reliant on paid media that we've kind of forgotten about the stuff we should be doing, which is worry about long-term, customer retention. And so we've all just said, hey, you know what? Just put money into the paid ad machine. You get money out. They didn't rebuy. Who cares? We'll just go find new customers. And so we've been in this cycle of, you get enough, right? Plus, as a marketer, you get attribution, which attribution has always been like, the holy grail of marketing. You could justify the money spent because you get an ROI. So what we did was say, you know what? Whatever, we'll just not worry about retention and innovation and making better products all the time, because we could just find more jerks. And so what I think is going to happen is everybody's going to get back into using, lifetime customer value as a primary metric. And that's what we're going to judge by, mainly because AI is excellent at patterns and experimentation. So paid advertising can get taken over by AI. And now any business could just get online, spend $50, and maybe you get $60. Now, for a marketer, that's not a good return. You always want a 2 to 10x, right? But for your average business, they'll say like, wow, I wasn't making any money. Now I'm making some money. This is great. And so the price of ads is going to go through the roof, and paid ads eventually is not going to be something you could be profitable on. It'll be break even or worse. And so the only way any business is going to be in business is if they're worried about customer retention, which then goes into community management, goes into content production, goes into innovating products, goes into customer care. I mean, there's so many things that we have not worried about are now going to become pivotal. So I think the marketer, marketing agency of the future, or say the marketing department of the future, is going to be a centralized person that has access to tools to maintain consistency and can now execute it in every area of the business. And we could destroy the silos that we've been setting up for the last 20 years.
A lot of great stuff there. I agree with you. I think if content is free, we're going to get a lot of bad content, and we're going to get a lot of like expensive ads and a lot of spam and stuff. Like, when email was invented, we got spam. When telephones were invented, we got telemarketers, and, we got interruptions in our feed and other stuff. All of that will, I think, kind of become so ubiquitous that there's going to need some sort of ad blocking and other, AI filters to filter out the AI spam, that it's just going to be an arms race there. So I think the people that can really communicate and connect with an audience, and like you said, build a brand and a community, are going to be the ones that.
I do have a prediction for that too. And this is also incorporated into what I'm doing. Is I think because of AI, again, we're going to have increasingly, and this is already happening, cybersecurity issues where you're just not able to protect your stuff, because there's a smart machine that could get around any defense you have. So the only defense against AI is going to be AI. And so just imagine an AI lives on your phone. It's guarding your, all of your stuff. But not only that, it knows your habits. It knows everything about you. And now it can pull in data that you want. And so now, instead of us being the proactive, like, oh, let me go find information, let me go find entertainment, it just comes to you because the machine knows what you actually prefer. And with generative content, now it could reformat anything you want into the writing preference you have, into the voice you like. If you like Alex Trebek, now, you're looking up how to plant roses. Your Aunt Sally's looking up how to plant roses. And now it's Alex Trebek, talking to her and say, hey, Sally, looking good today. Let's go ahead and plant some roses. I see in your backyard that you have a good space that has excellent sunlight. And so I went ahead and ordered you the, the miracle grow that you're going to need. And he's step by step. And so with that, how do you even market to that situation? And what I think is going to happen is you have to build this massive database of good information and then license it. I think through NFTs. I'm giving you like 1,000 theories right here. You'll license all that content, make it proprietary. And now you have a proprietary database that only you have, written in the voice of your business. And now that's what people are going to access. And it's going to be the person who has the best data that's actually going to win.
Yeah, I think that's going to be interesting, especially for big brands. I think you're right for big brands, and we'll see how small business gets to play in this. But I have a feeling it's going to be a flip back to the humanity of it. That like the way sort of, chains and Walmarts pushed out small mom and pop stores, and then Amazon pushed out Walmarts. We kind of go back to the circular thing of where if I can't trust anything on the internet because it's all made up or they can create custom products, it's like, well, I'm going to have to call a human that I know is human, like go into a store and actually talk to somebody and say, help me with this, because you like really, you can't trust anything.
No. Well, then you get into the deep fakes too, where it's just like, you can't even trust the people that you see online. You might, you heard about the businessman in Hong Kong that got ripped off of like $20 million because some, hacker put 20 AI together into a room and they all talked to each other. None of them are real except for the Mark. And then he transferred $20 million. So it's like, okay, so now I can't even trust that you're real. And so now what's real? It's like, well, your friends, your family, the guy you just met at an expo that you talked to for a while. And so that's where we're going to start to make decisions.
I think so, too. All right, we're wrapping up here. And I want to give you time to tell us about all the cool stuff you're doing at the AI Branding Academy. But before we do that, we did the best case scenario. Let's do like what's the worst way to use AI for your marketing?
Oh, it's to not brand anything, which again is why we're AI Branding Academy. Because what I found was that, everybody has access to the same tools. So why would anybody come to you specifically if I could just generate the answer myself using anything? I don't need to pay for it. Don't need to go find it. It's just there. You do it because people have a certain voice that you like. They have a certain mission that you like. They have all these different human aspects that you know what? Mike is cool. I've talked to Mike. He's a good guy. I like how he uses examples of stuff. He's really with it. And so I trust Mike. And now I'm going to go to him. So that's why the branding aspect is so important, because if everybody can create anything, why would I come to you? And it's because they like you and they like how you say stuff and they like how you produce stuff. And that's it. So your protection is really to be as you as possible.
Ooh, I like that. That's great advice. All right. I tell you what, I'm just going to hand the podcast over to you. You've been doing the heavy lifting. You have your own podcast and been doing this for a long time. How can we help you? How can you help us? Tell us about what you have going on with the Branding Academy and your other stuff.
So we, our primary framework is called the AI brand framework, or the AI branding framework. And what we do is we teach people how to make the most specific brand possible. We call it the AI brand blueprint. We have a certification for that process. And then we also have a community. It's just a free Facebook community. You can jump on and kind of see what it's all about. But we have courses. We also have a live event coming up in March 2025. where it's essentially a live intensive workshop where we get together and we all build out your brand together. And with AI, which this is the first time you can actually do this, we can just hand you a tool and it's instantly useful. And so that's really our goal, is to provide you one with the framework. That's the base of what you're going to make everything off of. And then we partner with other experts that are excellent at doing, videos or podcasts or, customer engagement or sales or all these different aspects. And now we speak the same language because we're all built off the same branding framework, and we could do the cool stuff without having to discuss what the heck we're talking about. We all operate in the same system. So I would say join the Facebook group, see what we're all about, and then start making cool stuff because it's super fun and easy.
Yeah. Or go to aibranding.academy for more information. You can find podcast Mark wherever you're listening and watching this. And we got to go out there and be human first, do some cool things, and decide what we want our brand to look like and be like, and take it up a notch. We now have the tools to build the business that we always dreamed about. It's time to go for it and do it. If you want to learn more about Avenue 9, we are helping companies create cool things like podcasts, courses, other marketing that you need from your story. We interview you, your founder, your best client, or your top salesperson, and then we create the materials from there. If you need help with it, go check out avenue9.com. See ya.